Let's bring in this story. President Trump has angered veterans by falsely claiming European troops stayed off the front lines in Afghanistan, despite hundreds from Britain and other allied countries dying in combat. Not to mention, of course, the many more that were injured, life-changingly so, in some of the most catastrophic and upsetting ways. Ash Alexander is a former colonel in the British Army who served in Afghanistan. He's released his first book, Mindful Soldier, just yesterday. This covers this whole area, particularly Afghanistan. Ash, good afternoon to you. Nice to have you with us. Tell us about the book. What was your reasoning for wanting to put pen to paper, to coin the phrase?
Honestly, I'm an accidental author, or more a reluctant author, but I've experienced a number of things in my life, both professionally and personally, and friends and clients and others convinced me eventually to put pen to paper. So I did that in the hope that some of the stories and experiences, if paired with some insights and practical tips about how we can all improve our resilience and understand how you build resilience as life throws things at us, and that was really the main reason for doing it. And I'm giving all profits from the book sales, any profit I make, assuming there'll be some, to veterans charities to help those who are who need the help from us.
Which is incredible, and that's amazing to hear that. I would imagine, I mean, you were in a senior position in the British Army. You would have overseen and experienced quite a lot in your time, in particular Afghanistan, as we were just talking about there. What is your overview, firstly? It's worth asking how the hell... I mean, let's remember, Afghanistan has been this basket case forever, that all manner of people have given it a go and tried to work out, what do we do? We think we can make it. Oh, no, we've got a plan. Oh, no, here's another plan. It's been like that for a long time. But the West going in, to coin the phrase, what did you make of that? Was it right that we were ever there?
I think we just have to remember that the reason we went there was in support of the US when Article 5 was invoked. And the only time Article 5 has ever been invoked was by the US, and the rest of the world stepped up. That is why we went in 2001 and then spent, as we all know, the next 20 years trying to set the place up for its own success. Sadly, that didn't happen. So whether or not we were right to go in the first place, we did. And those who went in there, I spent nearly 8 tours of duty in Afghanistan, nearly 4 years of my life spent there. I don't consider that to be wasted time, because we did a lot of good things for the right reasons to help that country. Unfortunately, it didn't play out as we'd hoped, but you know, it's pretty upsetting. I'm sure many of the families who lost loved ones, or those who are still with us but maimed or suffering life-changing injuries, will be pretty upset to have heard the language used in the last 24 hours.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, just before we get to that, the way we went in will always divide opinion when it comes to war. The way we came out is often more divisive when it comes to Afghanistan. What's your take on that?
I think, again, not everybody involved in this conversation is perhaps as keen on history and facts as maybe others are, but we have to remember that the timeline for the withdrawal was set by a particular president at the time, and that really, for the locals and the Taliban and the government, really set the clock ticking, and everything that we tried to do thereafter was always going to be a struggle, because they could happily wait us out, knowing that our patience and our clock would likely run out before theirs did.
It's a dangerous mission. You did 8 tours, of course. I mean, thank goodness none of you and the guys were on the front line, eh? I mean, that would have been even worse for you, because that's the word out of the White House yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, again, choice of words, pretty unfortunate. And one would hope, given the backlash, that perhaps the administration will take a little bit of a look at the choice of words and maybe have a quiet word, perhaps. But yeah, very galling for those who were absolutely on the front line and could not have got any further forward on that front line. We have to remember the Danes, for example, who've obviously been in the press very recently as well with the Greenland issue. They lost more soldiers, sailors, airmen per capita than the US. And that is something that we must not forget. And the UK clearly also lost nearly 460 servicemen, 457, I think, servicemen and women lost their lives in the course of that enterprise that was ultimately in support of the US and NATO.
Indeed. I mean, there are people, I would imagine, in the White House who are paid an impressive salary to come up with those numbers before their president makes a statement. But of course, this is Mr. Trump. He says things on the hoof, doesn't always plan what he's going to say. You'd like to think somewhere he will row back. I mean, I would argue, and I'm sure Ash, you might agree with this, that I think his words were significant enough to make another statement to clarify and apologise.
Yeah, given the history, I'm not sure we should expect that. Things will move on. There'll be more words and more statements today, tomorrow, and the next day. It doesn't take away the sting, I'm sure, for those families that are still, in many cases, I'm sure, grieving. And my heart goes out to them because I know how hard that is, having lost over 60 colleagues and friends over my service, many of whom were Brits, Afghans, Kiwis, Americans. I've carried the caskets and coffins of many different nationalities, all trying to do the right thing in support of that mission. So it is unfortunate, but we have to move on. And that's partly why hopefully my book will help people, that it's all about resilience in all walks of life and how we can build it and how we can get through the challenges that we face, whatever they may be.
Yeah. And I guess, and I did touch on this at the beginning, Ash, that obviously we lost hundreds of members of our military, other countries also. But those that did survive, but with life-changing injuries, I mean, that figure is off the scale. And there are, you mentioned the proceeds of your book, and there's all sorts of charities that have happened and sprung up since Afghanistan. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of stories, and certainly connected stories to these very brave soldiers whose lives were changed forever. It isn't just, losing limbs is a terrible thing. Losing all of them is, who knows how you get over that, but many of these guys do. But losing your mind as well, and all that goes with it. So the casualties puts that number even greater than the one we've been discussing today. The ramifications are vast.
Yeah, indeed. And there's even something called moral injury, that you don't necessarily, as an individual, have to have been present or been involved in the combat or the incident that caused loss of life or injury. If you are feeling unable that you can influence the outcome, there is still injury that can be created mentally from just feeling helpless in those situations. So, I mean, it's very hard to put a number on the numbers of people who would have been impacted, not just by Afghanistan, but by other conflicts over the last 20 or 30 years. Yeah. But we owe it to those who are suffering, who to do anything we can to support them, and that's what I'm committed to try and do. The two main charities that I'm supporting for the book is the Gurkha Welfare Trust and the Royal British Veterans Enterprise, who do amazing work, along with many other charities, to support those who are in need.
Good work. Mindful Soldier is the title. I mean, I see what you did there to coin the phrase. Mindful Soldier. Just talk us through that briefly, if you could, Ash. I've spoken to many former military personnel who've been in Afghanistan, Iraq and other places. You think we sit on our couch in the evening looking at the TV, you get a little snapshot of some soldiers, walking through a sort of desert area with rocks around. When you're on the ground, I mean, it doesn't matter how many maps somebody gives you and how much intelligence you're able to galvanise. Ultimately, there is a point where you and your guys have got you might have guns and all the rest of it. Those guns aren't going to do very much if someone's hiding in that hill with some, devastating amount of firepower or something else. You literally have to, at some stage, just walk out into a place you don't know, a place you've never been. The terrain is rough. The weather in the winter is absolutely bloody freezing. In the summer, it is beyond anything you want to stand in. And you've got to go out there and think, any minute now, I could just be shot, every single one of us. You mentioned resilience, which is central to what your book is about. Where the hell do you get resilience from in that scenario?
Well, resilience takes time to build up, over our lifetimes. And if you don't go through anything hard, you won't really have great reserves of resilience. So the challenge is, and the frustrating thing is, to be very resilient, you generally have to have gone through some tough stuff, which allows you to appreciate the good things. And it will take time, but it is all sort of achievable, as it were. But just talking to your point about not knowing what's going to happen, I mean, this is something that we cover a lot in the book, about being able to adapt and just accept that in life today, it's a very complex world in which we live and we don't have all the answers. And mentally, the sooner we can understand and accept that we don't have all the answers, and rather than seeing risk and threat where the answers aren't there, but seeing that as an opportunity and being able to adapt quickly, that's where we kind of have to get our minds in a sort of safe or healthy place. Yeah. But in Afghanistan, there was one particular base I remember very well in Sangin, which I know has come up a lot today in the news, where there was one particular patrol base of the army where the statistics were that there was a 1 in 4 chance of either losing a limb or being killed every time you left that base, because the threat from the enemy was so great. And I didn't live there or spend much time there, but you can only imagine, as in same in Ukraine today with the threats that they're seeing, just the pressure on young men and women to have to live with that 24/7, knowing that the next hour their whole world could change.
Yeah, and it's not like a challenge on a TV show, is it, where you do it once and go, oh great, I've done that walk, I've done it, did a few miles today, now I'm back at the base, everything's great. You've got to do it the next day and the day after.
Yeah, so you go through these spikes of dopamine that you've survived. I mean, the number of incidents, I've been shot several times, I've been blown up a few times, had a few helicopter crashes, and a suicide bomber tried to kill me once as well. You go through these spikes of, oh my God, I'm still alive. And in some cases you sort of giggle and you can't quite believe that you got through something. But even just that cycle of fear, worry, sort of jubilation or exhilaration that you got through something, that in itself over time can take its toll. And then you've got collective, look at Ukraine collectively, they don't get a break. They never get a break. And that is something that we also need to be looking at to the future. How do we support countries and communities at that scale who will all need to heal and prepare for the phase after this trauma?
Yeah. It's understandable when people talk about PTSD and the like, and, I was reading some stuff recently about the First World War, and, some of these young guys that you will be more familiar with that part of history than me because of, clearly because of what you do. It's beyond belief. It's almost too much to read sometimes, the experiences of some of those guys, and, they were so young and so inexperienced, and there was no kind of system for those that were lucky enough to come back. There was no real system, and if you said, I'm suffering, I feel stressed, I doubt the word even existed, you'd have either been laughed at or ostracized probably. We're a little better now, but still not fully there, I guess.
Well, at least efforts are being made. I mean, when I joined 30 years ago, it wasn't something that was discussed, and when you came back and you'd survived, it was sort of, well, lucky you, crack on with the next thing. I'm glad to say, knowing from friends who are that they're still serving, that the system is now much more aware of those things that are needed to make sure that people are coping and giving them strategies to do so, particularly if they're in roles where they're going in and out of this kind of cycle of trauma and conflict more routinely than others. But, we're not there yet, but at least we do have a plan now.
Listen, Ash, good luck with the book. It's out now. It's called Mindful Soldier. As you said, the proceeds are all going to the relevant charities. And great to see you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.